All right, so we are going to jump right into Algebra Readiness Skills Day 1. So first off, we need to make sure we understand order of operations. So that is, as many of you know, PEMDAS. So the P means parentheses. Ooh, goodness, I can't write today. I'm out of practice. So with parentheses, it's important to remember that you are just simplifying what's inside. Another important thing to remember with parentheses is that things like brackets also apply. Absolute values have the exact same rules with it. They all clump them together. The E is exponents. So if you have an exponent, that'd be like 3 squared. You would do that first before you did any multiplication or division. The next one is multiplication or division. Now, what I will say about multiplication or division is the fact that it is multiplication or division from left to right. So that is where a lot of people mess up. Because they want to just multiply first because they think the m comes first, but it's always multiplication or division from left to right. So as you're reading it, if you get a division before a multiplication, you have to do that before you do that multiplication. And then you have A and S, which is addition or subtraction. And just like multiplication and or division, it's addition or subtraction from left to right. So again, if you're reading it, if you are reading it and you have subtraction before addition, you have to do that before you can do the addition. So starting with example 1, we just have a whole bunch of addition and subtraction. So we just go in the order we see it. -8 plus 9 would be +1. And then I keep that -2 because it was there before. And 1 minus 2 gives me -1. For B, again, left to right, I have -5 minus 6, which gives me -11. And then that plus 3 is still there, so you have to write it. And at -11 plus 3 gives you -8. For the next one, and by the way, feel free to pause the video at any point to try these without my commentary. But we have 3 minus 4, which gives us -1, plus 15, which gives us 14. -1 plus 15 is 14. And then for part D, again, we're just going left to right, even though you may want to do that addition first. We just start with this -8 plus 2. And -8 plus 2 is -6. So then -6 minus 7 gives you -13. And if you have a hard time with adding and subtracting with these numbers, you can think of it in terms of if they have the same sign, keep sign and add. If they have different signs, so a positive and a negative, subtract, keep the sign of the bigger number. Or maybe you're more visual. If you wanted another option you could do, I'll do it for B, is since that's -5 minus 6, I have -5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, minus 6. Well, none of these negatives are going to cancel out. But then when I add in plus 3, some of my negatives will cancel out with some of these positives. So then you're left with your negatives left over. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that's how we got -8. Just different ways you can see it. So then for 2, we're going to review some fraction rules. So when we are adding or subtracting, remember you do need to have a like or a common denominator. Sometimes you can simplify and it's a smaller number, or they'll be smaller than what you're given. Sometimes it is one of the numbers you're given. So in this case, with 6 over 8 plus 3 over 2, if you notice, you can simplify that 6 over 8 and it makes the common denominator slightly easier, because 6 over 8 simplifies to 3 over 4, because you divide 6 by 2 gives you 3, 8 divided by 2 gives you 4. So then you can have 3 over 4 plus 3 over 2. So then in that case, our common denominator would be 4. So then if I wanted to make this 3 over 2 an over 4, I'd have to multiply the top and the bottom by, not by 4, silly me, by 2, and 3 times 2 is 6, so 6 over 4. So then when you add them, that would give you 9 over 4. Now, let's say you did not notice that 6 over 8 could be simplified. Then you'd have 6 over 8, and then to make that 3 over 2 an over 8, like over here, we would have to multiply that 2 by 4, which means I have to multiply the 3 by 4. And then 6 plus 12 is 18 over 8. And then that can be simplified because you can divide the top and the bottom by 2, and that gives you 9 over 4. For the second one, we are subtracting, so we need another common denominator. With 3 and 5, our common denominator would be 15, because 3 times 5 would give me 15. So that means on the top I would have 20, because 4 times 5 is 20. And then on the bottom, 5 times 3 gives me 15, so then 9 times 3 gives me 27. So then 20 minus 27 would be negative 7 over 15. Also, with these fractions, when you have a negative, it doesn't matter if the negative is in the top or the bottom or just off to the left side of the fraction itself, because it'll give you the same number regardless. For multiplying, you can either multiply straight across, so 10 times 7 is 70, over 14 times 2 is 28. But then if you notice when you do that, then you have to simplify. So the other way you can do this, you can go through and simplify if you want, but the other alternative way is I notice that I have this 10 and this 2, and I know they have a 2 in common. So if I divide 10 by 2, that gives me 5, and 2 divided by 2 gives me 1. So now I have it as 5 over 14 times 7 over 1. But then I notice that, do a slightly darker blue, this 14 and this 7 have a 7 in common. So if I divide 14 by 7, that gives me 2, and 7 divided by 7 gives me 1. So now my problem is really like 5 over 2 times 1 over 1, which just gives me 5 over 2. Now, maybe you don't believe me and think I must be crazy. If I go to the 70 over 28, both of those can be divided by 7. So if I divide them both by 7, that gives me 10 over 4. And then 10 over 4 can divide top and bottom by 2, which will give you 5 over 2. All right, for this one, 18 over 11 divided by negative 6, we're going to write that negative 6 is over 1. And when we divide fractions, we have to copy the first fraction, change it to multiplication, and then flip the second fraction. So that's also known as copy.flip. Some people also call it keep, flip, change, because you keep the first, flip the second, and change it to multiplication. But then you're just multiplying straight across or cross simplifying. So you'll notice I have a negative 6 and an 18. If I divide by 6, 18 would become 3, and negative 6 would just become negative 1. So then 3 times 1, still going straight across, is 3. 11 times negative 1 is negative 11. So it's just 3 over negative 11. Or negative 3 over positive 11, kind of depends on how you see it. All right, so example 3 is actually doing some order of operations with more than one operation. So if you start, remember it's PEMDAS, so P-E-M-D-A-S. So, oopsie. Since it's parentheses first, I notice I have this set of parentheses right here. So I'm just going to write everything else that is there. And 3 minus 1 is 2. So I just simplify that. Then I look for exponents. I don't have any. Multiplication I do have, but it's multiplication or division from left to right. So I have to do this division first. So 8 divided by 2 gives me 4. And then we do multiplication. So we have 10 plus 8, which gives us 18. Okay. For the next one, we have, let's see, we don't have any parentheses that can be simplified. Even though we have this 3 and this 4, nothing we can do with it, so we just leave them. But we do have an exponent. We have this 3 squared. So that would become 6 times 9, and I'm just going to write everything else as I see it. So then we have multiplication or division from left to right. So I do my multiplication. 6 times 9 is 54, minus 7 times 4, plus 9. 7 times 4 is 28, or if you see it as negative 7 times 4, it's negative 28, plus 9. And then we're just doing 54 minus 28, which gives us 26, plus 9, which is 35. Okay. For the next one, these absolute values are treated as if they were parentheses. So 2 minus 7 would give us negative 5. Now, something I will add is when you have fractions, even though they're not drawn on here, it's kind of like the top and the bottom each has a big set of parentheses, so they're tied together. So I can actually do those at the same time. So the absolute value of 5, or negative 5, is just 5 because it's the distance from 0. So we have 6 times 5 over negative 20. And 6 times 5 is 30, which would become 3 over negative 2 if you simplify. Okay. So then, last but not least, we have one with brackets. Does not change how we do it though. So we start with the parentheses, which is this little bit in here. Since I have an exponent inside of the parentheses, I do take care of that. But we have 9 minus 3. 5 squared is 25 plus 1 divided by 2. Close my bracket. So then 25 plus 1 is 26. So I have 26 divided by 2. And again, remember, brackets are the same as parentheses. So I have 9 minus 3 times, I'm going to change it to parentheses just because I'm used to parentheses. 26 divided by 2 is 13. So then 3 times 13 is 39. And 9 minus 39 would give you negative 30. Okay. So then we have 3 words that we use a lot of math that just get mixed up a lot. So evaluate is plugging in values and simplifying. Simplifying, though, is combining like terms in an expression which has no equal sign, and you still have variables in your answer. So keeping that in mind, when you're simplifying, you should still have variables in your answer if you started with some. And then when you are solving, you are actually combining like terms and determining the value of a variable in an equation. So you'll get like x equals something. So starting with just evaluate, remember evaluate is plugging in and simplifying. So if I have xy plus z, and I know that x is negative 4, y is 2, and z is negative 3, then I'm just going to plug those straight in. So I'm going to say that's blue, and for those of you that are color savvy, you might love this. But we have negative 4 is x, y is 2, and then we have plus z, which is negative 3. So I have a tendency to put parentheses around things a lot of the times. But when I do that, then it's a bit easier to see where I've plugged in. So then multiplying negative 4 times 2, that would give us negative 8. And then this plus and minus, you can actually just write it as minus 3 if you want, or you can leave it as plus negative. But regardless, negative 8 minus 3 gives you negative 11, or negative 8 plus negative 3. Either way, it's still the same. So then, for the next one, we have u is negative 6 and v is negative 1. So again, we are just plugging this in. We have 4 times u, which is negative 6, divided by negative 3 times v, which is negative 1. So then, order of operations, we go left to right. Multiplication, we do 4 times negative 6, which gives us negative 24, divided by negative 3v, which that would be positive 3. And then, by the way, in case you're wondering why we didn't do the division first, these are in parentheses and we can simplify. So the negative 24 divided by 3 is negative 8. Okay. For the next one, we have that c is negative 1 and d is negative 5. So we have 3 times c, which is negative 1, minus 2 times d, which is negative 5. So when I'm solving this one, I'm going to do my multiplication first. 3 times negative 1 is negative 3. And then what will make your life simpler is if you see this negative as negative 2 times negative 5, that would be positive 10 or plus 10. So the negative 3 plus 10 gives you 7. Okay. So then, last but not least, we have this lovely one. So we start negative 2 times m, which is negative 6, plus 4 times n squared. So n is negative 5, and that is getting squared. Okay, so then we start with the exponents. So we have negative 2 times negative 6. That just stays for now. And then negative 5 squared is 25. So then, order of operations, we do our multiplication first. Negative 2 times negative 6 gives us positive 12. Plus, and I'm just going to go ahead and do my multiplication again. 4 times 25 is 100, which gives us 112. Okay? So now that we are getting on to simplifying, we are just simplifying, remember, means it has a variable in the answer. So coming down, we are just combining like terms. So I notice with this one, I have this little negative sign. And when I have that negative sign, it actually changes the sign of everything after it. So we have, instead of minus 9g, it's negative 9g. And then negative or minus negative 4 would be positive 4. So for me, I like to rewrite it most of the time, but it's just kind of up to your preferences. But then we are combining like terms. So that is just this 2g minus 9g, which would give us negative 7g. And then that plus 4 just gets to stay, and we can't do anything farther than that. We have combined all the like terms. So for the next one, we have a negative in front, so I'm going to go ahead and distribute. It's going to be a negative 3 plus 7k, so notice it just changes the signs. And then when I distribute this 8 out, 8 times negative k gives me negative 8k, and 8 times negative 5 gives me negative 40. So then, based on this information, I can combine my like terms. 7k minus 8k gives me negative k, and then negative 3 minus 40 gives me negative 43. Okay, so these answers may not be the prettiest numbers, but it is okay. So then for this next one, distributing, 3 times 4y is 12y. 3 times 2 is 6. Negative 5 times negative 1 gives me positive 5. Negative 5 times positive 6 gives me negative 30y. So then, again, we are combining like terms. We have 12y and negative 30y, which would give us, let's see, what is it, 18, I think? Let me double check because I don't like to trust myself sometimes. Yes, negative 18. So we have negative 18y, and then 6 plus 5 is 11. Okay, by the way, if you're tempted to combine the 18 and the 11 because, oh my goodness, you can't have two terms, remember, it is okay because you can only combine like terms if they have the same variable to the same power, and 11 does not have a y with it, so we can't do anything. So then, last but not least, I'm going to rewrite this without the parentheses. So I have a negative times all of this, so that'd be negative 2a and positive 6. 4 times 3a is 12a. 4 times 5 is 20. And then we have that minus a out there all by its onesies. So then when I'm combining like terms, I have negative 2 plus 12, which gives me positive 10a. And then positive 10a minus 1a gives me 9a. So then I have 11 plus 6, which gives me 17, plus 20, which gives me 37. Okay? So then last but not least is solving equations. So when you're solving an equation, you are determining the value of a variable. So with solving, oopsie, don't want to go that far. You want to combine any like terms that you may have. So if you have variables on both sides, put them on one side, and then you are trying to get that variable by itself. So in A, we have an x on both sides. So for me, I notice that if I add 5x, that my x will be positive. So I'm going to add 5x here because then negative 5x plus 5x gives me 0, and I'm just left with 21 on the left side. And then negative x plus 5x gives me 4x, and then that minus 3 stays. So then to get the x by itself, we want to cancel out this negative 3. So we're going to add 3 to both sides, which gives us 24 equals 4x. And then we are going to divide by 4 because division undoes the multiplication. And 24 divided by 4 is 6. Okay? Some of you, it may also help if you just draw yourself a little line to help keep you organized between your two sides of the equation. Just something that might help you. So then for the next one, we have e's on both sides. So in this case, I notice that this 8e and 13 are both positive. So that means I'm going to have to subtract one of them. Since I like to keep my variable positive, I would personally subtract 8e. If you were to subtract the 13, you would still get the same answer, assuming you did everything else correctly. But personal preference, I like to keep my variables positive unless it benefits me. So then I have negative 6 equals 5e plus 9. So then I would need to subtract the 9 to cancel it out. Negative 6 minus 9 is negative 15. And then because this is 5e, or 5 times e, we need to divide by 5 to cancel it out, so that we just get that e is negative 3. Okay? So then for c, we have to simplify the left side first. So I'm going to distribute this 2. So 2 times 6w is 12w, and 2 times negative 7 is negative 14. Oops. Close enough. All right, so then we are going to combine the like terms on the left. So 12w minus 4w, those are on the same side, so you're just simplifying like you were above. 12 minus 4 is 8w, and then this minus 14 just stays. So then to solve this, I'm going to add 14 to both sides. Boop. And we get 8w equals, let's see, negative 10 plus 14 gives you a positive 4. And then we divide by 8. And w equals 1/2. And the reason why I'm hesitating is because on another key I saw, the answer was not 1/2. So I'm just going to double check this real quick. 2 times 6w is 12w. 2 times negative 7 is negative 14. That negative 4w stays. Negative 10 stays. 12w minus 4w is 8w. Negative 14. Negative 10. We add the 14. Yep, I think I'm good. Tell me if I'm wrong, though. Please do. All right, so then for d, we have to distribute. So negative 3 times z is negative 3z. Negative 3 times negative 1 is positive 3. And then 2 times negative 4, z is negative 8z. See, I love x too much. And then 2 times 6 is 12. So then, because we have variables on both sides, we want to combine them. They're both negative, so if I were to add 3z, I would still get a negative over on the right. So I'm actually going to add 8z. Because now negative 3z plus 8z is 5z plus 3 equals 12, because negative 8 plus 8 makes it 0. So then we subtract the 3, and we get 5z equals 9. And then when we divide by 5, because z equals 9/5. And again, I'm getting an answer that does not match the original key I saw. So I just want to make sure that it's not me. So -3 times z, +3, -8, +12. That's all good. So we added 8z to both sides. And when we did that, that gave us +5z plus 3 equals 12. And then we subtract the 3. 5z equals 9. Z is 9/5. Yes. All right, so if you have any questions regarding any of this, or maybe you noticed that I made a mistake, let me know. Put a comment down below. Also, if the video was helpful or you liked it, do a like, subscribe, anything that helps you do math better. And I will see you next time.